Welcome to the Verdict Zone, where we dissect the most unusual disputes and render our judgment. Today's case is a masterclass in consequences, paranoia, and the staggering price of refusing to believe a simple truth. We're calling this one the unwanted payoff. This is the incredible story of a woman whose ex-partner's guilt and fear led him to voluntarily surrender a major asset, his house, to solve a problem she repeatedly told him he did not have. Imagine this scenario: your relationship ends in the worst way possible. Your partner, let's call him Tom, cheats on you. Then, adding insult to injury, he locks you out of the home you shared and throws away all of your belongings. It's a brutal, clean break. You're left to pick up the pieces and move on. You do. Sometime later, you find love again with a new partner, Clark. Life starts to look up and soon you discover you're pregnant. You and Clark are thrilled. The past is the past and you have zero intention of ever involving your toxic ex, Tom, in your new life. But secrets rarely stay secret in a small town. Somehow, Tom hears about the pregnancy, and instead of a simple congratulations or, more likely, complete silence, he spirals into a vortex of paranoia. He becomes utterly convinced that the baby is his. He believes this isn't just a pregnancy, it's a calculated plot. A scheme you've cooked up to destroy his reputation, ruin his new relationship, and extort him. You're baffled. You tell him, point blank, Tom, you are not the father. Your new partner, Clark, the actual father, tells him, dude, I am the father. Your family, who witnessed the messy breakup and know the timeline, tells him, Tom, it's not you. The truth is coming at him from every possible angle, clear and consistent. But Tom refuses to listen. His guilt over how he treated you has morphed into a full-blown persecution complex. He sees conspiracies where there are only facts. In his mind, your denial is just part of the game. Your family's statements are part of the conspiracy. Clark's confirmation is just him covering for you. Tom is trapped in a prison of his own making and he's looking for a key. This is where the story takes a turn from a typical relationship drama into something truly extraordinary. Consumed by fear, Tom decides to take control of the narrative, a narrative that exists only in his head. He approaches you, not with a request for a paternity test, but with a shocking offer. He tells you he will sign over his entire house to you. In exchange, he wants a legally binding non-disclosure agreement. He wants your silence. He's trying to buy his way out of a scandal that isn't real. You didn't ask for this. You don't want his house. You just want him to accept the truth and leave you alone. But he is adamant. He is desperate to make this problem, his imaginary problem, go away. So you make a decision. You accept the deal. You sign the papers, and just like that, you own a house you never asked for, a house that is essentially a payment for a false accusation. And then, to add the final layer of irony, you do what he never formally requested. You mail him a copy of the official paternity test results, a black and white, legally certified document that proves, once and for all, that Clark is the father. The proof he could have asked for at any time is now in his hands. But only after he's already paid the ultimate price for his disbelief. Now, for the next 15 minutes, we're going to put this entire bizarre transaction on trial. We will dissect the ethics, the psychology, and the legal ramifications of what happened. Let's start by analyzing Tom's position. Here is a man driven by a potent cocktail of guilt and fear. He cheated, he behaved cruelly, and that unresolved guilt made him vulnerable to extreme thinking. When he heard about the pregnancy, he didn't see a new life, he saw a karmic bill coming due. He projected his own untrustworthiness onto his ex, assuming she must be as manipulative as he was. A behavioral psychologist might call this catastrophizing. Tom jumped to the absolute worst-case scenario and then acted as if it were an established fact. He created a high-stakes bargaining situation to mitigate a threat he single-handedly invented. He wasn't responding to a real demand for money or property, he was responding to the phantoms in his own mind. He chose to escalate the situation from a conversation to a legal and financial transaction. He refused the simple, free solution, believing the truth, and instead opted for the most complicated and expensive solution imaginable. He wasn't a victim of extortion, he was the architect of his own financial downfall. He built the fire, fanned the flames, and then paid a fortune for an extinguisher he didn't need because the fire wasn't real. Now, let's scrutinize the actions of our subject, the ex-girlfriend. Her position seems much simpler on the surface, but it's riddled with moral complexity. She told the truth. Not once, not twice, but repeatedly. She involved the actual father and her family to corroborate the truth. She did everything you're supposed to do when faced with a false accusation. She was clear, consistent, and honest. But when Tom refused to believe her and instead presented this unsolicited, life-changing offer, what was she supposed to do? Did she have a moral duty to refuse the house? Should she have protected Tom from his own foolishness? Or was accepting the house simply the natural, albeit extreme, consequence of his own paranoia and stubborn refusal to listen? One could argue that she was under no obligation to manage his delusions. He was an adult who made a calculated, proactive offer. He even formalized it with legal documents. By accepting, she wasn't lying or manipulating, she was passively accepting the outcome of his actions. He created the terms of the settlement for a dispute that only existed in his head. Why should she be punished for his inability to accept reality? From this perspective, the house wasn't a prize she won, it was a consequence he earned. It was the price he paid not for paternity, but for his profound lack of trust and his need to control a situation through money, rather than through honest communication. To help us navigate this ethical minefield, we spoke with some experts. Dr. Alana Finch, a behavioral psychologist, explained the powerful role of projection. She said, when an individual carries immense guilt, they often can't tolerate that feeling within themselves. So they project it outward. Tom's guilt over his infidelity likely made him believe his ex was capable of an equally grand betrayal. He wasn't seeing her, he was seeing a reflection of his own worst actions. He built a narrative where he was the victim of a plot because that was easier to accept than the simple, painful truth that he had behaved badly and his ex had moved on. We also consulted with contract lawyer Ben Carter, who weighed in on the ethics. He noted, legally, if an offer is made without duress or illegal coercion and both parties are of sound mind, a contract is generally valid. The fascinating ethical question here is about profiting from someone's fundamental misunderstanding of the facts, while she had no legal duty to correct his self-deception past a certain point. The moral court is another matter. Did she take advantage of his compromised mental state? Or did she simply let the dominoes of his own creation fall where they may? The law often sees this as caveat emptor, buyer beware. In this case, Tom was buying a solution and he failed to do his due diligence. These expert opinions highlight the core conflict, the clash between personal responsibility and moral obligation to others. Tom was responsible for his choices, but did she have a duty to save him from himself? Accepting a benefit that stems directly from someone else's self-created delusion is a gray area. Is it shrewd opportunism, or is it ethically questionable? She didn't create his paranoia, but she certainly benefited from it. This brings us to our final judgment, our moral judgment to ponder. This astonishing situation forces us to ask a difficult question. If someone is absolutely determined to pay a price for a sin they did not commit, are you morally obligated to stop them? Or are you simply a bystander to their own expensive, self-taught lesson? Think about it. He refused the truth when it was offered for free. He insisted on paying for a fiction. At what point does her responsibility to manage his reality end and his responsibility for his own choices begin? Is it her fault that he valued a piece of paper and NDA more than the word of everyone around him? By accepting the house, she essentially closed the chapter on his terms. It was a bizarre, unwanted transaction, but it was the one he insisted on. Perhaps, in the end, it was the only language he was willing to understand. The line between consequence and manipulation can be razor thin. If you're fascinated by stories where the truth is ignored and paranoia pays the bill, you need to be in this courtroom. Subscribe and hit the notification bell for the verdict zone. We deliver verdicts on the most unconventional settlements known to man. Judge the deal. Subscribe now.